This is Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get on. No choice but get on. Mandate. Get it on. Welcome to the best hour or so in the universe. It's Reasonable Doubt. I'm Adam Carolla. That's Mark. Hard out. Garrigus over there in his home office.
I was starting to head to you, and then I got pulled right back. I feel like that old expression. I really wanted to see you.
Well, we see you via the magic of Zoom, and that'll do until the Christmas party.
Exactly.
Is the Christmas party Christmas Eve?
No, Christmas Day.
Christmas Day.
You usually show up. I'm going to say you're like a 5 o'clocker.
Yeah. Are you doing testing this year for COVID?
No.
Good.
That was last year. That nonsense is over with. Although I did see, I know people keep telling us stop beating this like a dead horse, but speaking of the dead horse, the Barbara Ferrer waited until after the election to announce that we're on the cusp of indoor mask mandate again. Can you believe this? Talk about not letting go.
And also, it's just what you want from your healthcare officials waiting for after an election to drop information. Right. More and more of that going on these days. What are you working on, or what recent victories have you had?
Well, the getting Kane out last week was as gratifying as can be to have him go get home. I've got another case that's where I was this morning. That hopefully I'll be able to announce next Tuesday on BARD, two resolutions of two cases that we've talked about. So as of right now, I can't speak about it, but that's what I'm doing. I've been following, we talked about, in fact, Gary presciently or accurately named it the ninth floor, those two cases going on. Because both are close friends I consider them close friends who are trying the cases, Weinstein's case and the Masterson case. The Masterson jury is, Gary, unless something's happened this morning that I haven't heard about, still out deliberating, right? And as we record this, it's Friday afternoon, which part of, Adam, you've heard this a zillion times from me, part of the bewitching hour is Friday at around 3 o'clock for a jury. So we may have a verdict. And if we don't.
Danny Masterson from that 70s show who was accused of rape, I guess.
Right.
We didn't plan on this one, but I'll bring it up. We don't need to do it in real time, but Gary can look into it. The rape case that I keep thinking about for some reason, and it's probably not a good sign if I was telling this to a therapist, the Ron Jeremy rape case, the porn star, the hedgehog case is bizarre to me. He was this ubiquitous guy. He would show up at all the parties. He would get in rap videos and stuff like that. He was a big a celebrity as a male porn star could ever be. He was working in the industry for 45 years. And then at some point, it was like, a couple of young women accused him of having sex with them. And everyone's kind of thing was like, all he does is get paid to have sex with young women. What did he do? And the next thing you know, he's just in jail for perpetuity. And I could never really figure that case out.
So Alexandra in our office was trying a case, or was standby counsel, I think, on a case. And he was wheeled into a courtroom within the last couple of months. I think there's a picture of him in the internet and virtually unrecognizable. I mean, it is, Gary can find it. I think you're going to be amazed. And the kind of the before and the after. I mean, he was not a centerfold before, but the look and and I believe also the mental decline. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, there he is.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow. I mean, we're talking Howard Hughes-esque here. I mean, we are talking about a full, bushy, gray beard that is not trimmed or shaped in any way, long gray hair, looks like he's down 50 pounds from his normal physique and like schmutz all over the front. I mean, this looks like he's making a play for some sort of mental argument. Yes.
Yeah, I think he is, because I think they've declared a doubt as to his competency going forward. And I believe that he's over in the mental health area or soon to be. Maybe he's already gone through it, but that was the last I had heard. So he's on the 9th floor down there. You got Danny Masterson. Billy Baldwin was apparently there in support of Danny Masterson yesterday in the courthouse. And then you've got, supposedly in the Weinstein case, the rumor is that Gavin Newsom was in the courthouse yesterday. And
oh, really?
When his wife was testifying, apparently he was not, nobody caught a picture of him that I've seen at least. But when his wife testified and, had that line about, I'm not going to do When Harry Meets Sally, because Worksman had asked her specifically to what kind of moan or what kind of sound she made when she was trying to pleasure Harvey Weinstein. She apparently snapped right back. But I will tell you that, and I mentioned this on Bard, but I think it needs to be said again. If the Masterson case that Philip Cohen is trying, and that jury's out for several days already, that usually means for a case like this, as much as you can prognosticate, that there is a split of some kind. And that's why I always say Friday at 3. If that jury goes beyond Friday at 3 and home for the weekend, that usually means you've got the makings of a hung jury.
Jeremy's case was suspended mid-trial over mental health questions in May 2022. So
basically, he's incarcerated, but in a mental health facility, and it looks like that'll just be how his life will play out.
Oh, no more trial?
I mean, maybe if he is evaluated to be of sound mind in the future, but it seems like his cases were suspended, and he is now in a mental health facility.
Yeah,
but not free to go home.
No. He's incarcerated in a mental health facility. And his trial has been paused.
My guess would be, if I had to guess, they probably have shipped him some. They've already, if it was in May and we're now in November, I would speculate that both the prosecution and the defense have had their court-appointed experts both opine that he's not competent. And when you're not competent, they'll usually ship you out to patent.
With no trial ever again? I mean,
if you get your competency restored, you can come back and be put on trial. But the problem is, and I've had this numerous times, that they go to the mental health facility, say Patton, they get medication, they get kind of grounded, they get their competency back because they're under treatment. Or if that can happen. I mean, in his case, if it's a deterioration that's age-related or some kind of a condition that's irreversible, there's not going to be a trial as far as we can tell. But in the case where it's somebody who's maybe off their meds or wasn't treated correctly, the problem is once they ship them back to county jail, they then lose that medical attention and they become incompetent again. So you've got this ping pong match going on where their competency is restored and then and I'm not saying that's happening with him, but that is one of the basic dilemmas when you have somebody who's got a mental health issues in the criminal justice system. It's all too often, you've heard me pontificate about this before, every sheriff of LA County will opine that they run the largest mental health facility in the world, which is AKA the county jail, because unfortunately, we don't have a system that picks up on these guys. And then what do you end up having? What we had yesterday, I believe, or the night before, you have somebody who walks into the Target across the street from the engine company and picks up a knife, a butcher knife, and swings it at a 9-year-old and then goes after a young lady. And then the Target security, I believe, ended up shooting him.
So just to put a finer point on this, if you're the victims of Ron Jeremy alleged rape, don't you want justice? And is this Ron's counsel telling him to sort of plead this Vincent Gigante thing, the crime boss who tried to pretend he was insane for 30 years to avoid prosecution? Are they encouraging this? Is his side encouraging this? Or is this an actual thing? And you may not know, but if it is an actual thing, how do you just indefinitely suspend justice?
That's the law. You have to be competent in order to stand trial. And yes, if somebody is a complaining witness, they generally want to get some kind of resolution to it. But in his case, based on what you have to get a professional to see whether they're malingering or not. It's ethically, you'd be very challenged if you were encouraging somebody to feign that, because there really is no point to it. I mean, you don't get resolution. You don't get any time credits. You don't get to tell your side of the story, so to speak, if you're the accused. So I'm always lax about making the accusation of malingering. That's usually the expert that's hired by the prosecution who makes that argument.
So what was he accused of, Gary? And then it all seemed bizarre because he was a guy. I mean, he's sort of making the Harvey Weinstein defense, which is he got to do this as much as he wanted to do it. Why would he need to rape somebody when he essentially was getting paid to have sex with young women?
Seems like it might have been his thing, because if you go back, I found a timeline of the sexual assault allegations, and they start in 1996, and they're pretty steady throughout the 2000s.
So there's many, many women.
Rape in 96, rape at a nightclub in 2000, rape at a strip club in 2002 and 3, sexual assault at a bar 2003, rape of someone below 18 in 2004, again of a minor in 2008. Rape at his home, 2010. Rape in Los Angeles County, 2020. Rape in Los Angeles County, 2020.
So now he's just going to ride it out for whatever time he has left in a mental institution.
Yeah, how old is he now? I mean, he looks in that picture. It's hard to tell.
I got to believe he's knocking on the door of 70, but he looks like he's 170.
69.
69. Perfect
wow.
timing.
Wow. You could be one of those guys at the circus who guesses the age.
I think that's weight. Other things.
Okay, guess his weight. I'm going to hold you to that. What do you think?
Well, he walked in at a robust 235, but he's got to be down to about 155, 160 now. All right, so other stories going on.
Before we get to what I think is the breaking news, which seems in the last couple of years to always be Trump related. There's a story that Brett, who does some research for us, found today that is fascinating to me. And I believe it's out of Texas. Is it not, Gary?
Yeah, it's out of Waco.
Yeah. Can you?
Yeah. So sorry, I was trying to let you finish your thought there, but yeah, it's a suburban mother. She was her name's Heather Wallace, and she was driving her 3 sons home from karate in 2021 in October, and the kids were fighting as young kids do, and she asked
three sons, right?
3 sons. So
right. As one of 3 boys, been there, done that countless times.
Oh yeah, and as someone with cousins, same. Anytime you get around other kids your age, you're going to fight. So the mother, in an attempt to get him to calm down, told Aiden to get out of the car and walk the last half mile home in suburban Waco so that he could calm down. She was arrested, handcuffed, and thrown in jail, and is being charged with felony endangering of a child, which carries a mandatory minimum of 2 years in prison if convicted.
Yeah, there was this story some time ago where a mom was arrested during COVID for letting her kid play on the playground with other kids. This is Orwellian Big Brother shit, and it's got no business in our government. The more intervention between the government, the police, and the politicians and you parenting is not a good direction to go down, and we're going down that road pretty quickly here.
I just don't understand. This is the reason I brought it up first is because I thought of you because of your kind of axiom about if it sounds too crazy, there's got to be more to it. But I looked into it, and it is almost as crazy as it sounds. I don't understand. It was a rural area. It's not like you dropped the kid off in the middle of Manhattan or something, and you had him walk. What was it, Gary? Half a mile? I mean,
correct. That's not very far out in like suburban Texas. It's
No.
You can probably see that far.
But then
Right.
who dropped the dime on her?
It doesn't. It doesn't say in the details we were given. I let me read a little more and maybe I can figure it out.
The kid was 9, did you say?
I believe he was 8.
Oh, 8. All right. Yeah.
so what grade is an 8-year-old in? It's been so long. 8-year-old could be
Second,
what?
third, second.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Every kid in my
3.
grade school,
3.
grade 3, everybody walked to school back in the
Right.
day. This was essentially make walking to school illegal in that part of Texas. That is insane.
Well, and by the way, when we were walking to school back then, especially in the afternoon back from school, you had to rinse your eyes out because of all the smog from walking home. Remember that?
We used to have a lot of smog alerts. All right, so there's some...
There's the big story, I guess, is Merrick Garland.
Before we move on, sorry, a woman 1 block away had called the cops to report a boy walking outside alone.
Karen. All right. Merrick Garland.
Merrick Garland. Gary, you want to announce this? Because the breaking news of the day.
Yeah, so Merrick Garland has appointed a special counsel on Friday to oversee Justice Department investigations into former President Donald Trump. And this has to do with the Mar-a-Lago case and the classified documents. He appointed former Justice Department prosecutor and former chief prosecutor for the special court at The Hague, Jack Smith, to serve as special counsel to oversee 2 ongoing criminal investigations.
Didn't they just have an article that most of the stuff was memorabilia and keepsakes and that they didn't have any proof that he was trying to profit off it?
More for ego than financial gain.
Yeah, so why are we continuing down this road, Mark?
I've said it once. I'll say it again. The Republicans they've got themselves to thank for continuing this endless cycle of special counsel. And it was dumb when they did it with Clinton. It was dumb when it was done against Trump. I do not understand why we continue to do this. If you appoint a special counsel against somebody, and I know what the argument's going to be, so that the special counsel is somehow, this is what their argument is removed. And so it's not going to be viewed as a political decision because now we're dealing with the presumed nominee of the Republican Party. But this is just, it is proven that it doesn't work. Every special counsel, with the exception of Mueller, who appears to be somewhat impaired, and I don't say that in any negative way. I just, everybody around him was saying it. But Ken Starr, who just died, lamented the special counsel statute, even though he was probably one of the worst examples of it. You go back to the guy who predated him, which was Fisk. He said the same thing. Anybody who spent any time in the criminal justice system and understands the process and what a prosecutor is supposed to do. The idea of a special counsel, it just is never a good idea. It just doesn't work.
But why move forward if you raided the guy's house? And I mean, to me, it kind of smacks of the Border Patrol horseback riding, whipping Haitians thing, which is you politicize something, you seize it, you go nuts with it, you speculate all up and down. And then at some point, it's nothing, but you have to sort of will yourself correct. So you keep going with the process. And now they're looking at administrative issues or something that had to do with these guys. And so you raid the former president's home. You take all these documents. You make a lot of proclamations about nuclear launch codes and Russian collusion and secrets and stuff like that. You end up with a trove of memorabilia that seems like more ego than profit. By the way, you let Hillary Clinton off because you said while what she did was not legal with her server, she was not attempting to profit from it. And so you said, moving on. But now you're going to continue with the special counsel to sort of will yourself right? Because they came out and said that it was more ego than profit, or all ego and no profit. So where's the there?
Well, and look, as predicted, even though I clearly was in the camp that thought there would be a red tsunami, but as predicted, the House is now in the control of the Republicans. And as predicted, they've already announced that they're going to begin investigations as literally of everything that we itemized. No surprise. And what is going to happen now is you're going to have the House start to do investigations of the DOJ and the FBI. And they're going to haul those guys into committees and have them testify. At the same time, you're going to have a special counsel who's appointed by the DOJ who is investigating the presumed head of the same party that now controls the House. What can go wrong with that scenario?
Well, I mean, if you look at it this way, the era that we're entering is one side is investigating the front runner from the Republican Party for the next presidential election, and the other side is going to be investigating and maybe trying to impeach what would be the front runner for the other side's presidential election. I have some of Jim Jordan's video from that proclamation, and I'll play that for you in a second. But first, I'll tell you about Audible. Don't ride elevators for the elevator music or pick airlines for their movies. Right, you don't do that. For audio entertainment, choose Audible. It's the home of stories told by the biggest stars like Ethan Hawke, Kerry Washington, and even Kevin Hart. Let your imagination soar. Incredible selection of audiobooks across every genre. Bestsellers, new releases, celebrity memoirs, mysteries and thrillers, motivation, wellness, business, and more. Audible members can choose one title a month to keep from their entire catalog, plus access to Audible originals and podcasts as well. Now you can even listen to Reasonable Doubt with your Audible subscription. It is Audible. Am I right, Gary?
You are right. Let Audible help you discover new ways to laugh, be inspired, or be entertained. New members can try it free for 30 days. Visit audible.com/RD or text RD to 500-500. That's audible.com/RD or text RD to 500-500 to try Audible for free for 30 days. Audible.com/RD.
All right.
So talk about, I mean, it's frustrating. I don't think that there's anybody who watches this who isn't frustrated by the state of what's going on. So let's find a different story to talk about. What do you say, Gary?
Well, hold on. I got Jim queued up.
Oh, yeah, Jim Jordan. Okay, good. Let's see. Play it off so we can spin off of that.
So it starts with James Comer here at the top, and then we'll get into Jordan. So let's check this out.
This is an investigation of Joe Biden, the President of the United States, and why he lied to the American people about his knowledge and participation in his family's international business schemes. The Biden family's business dealings implicate a wide range of criminality, from human trafficking to potential violations of the Constitution. In the 118th Congress, this committee will evaluate the status of Joe Biden's relationship with his family's foreign partners and whether he is a president who is compromised or swayed by foreign dollars and influence.
And I think it's also important to understand, never forget how this story has changed. I mean, think about this. When it started off, it was, no, it's not his laptop. It's not his laptop. Then it was, well, it's his laptop, but remember, it's Russian disinformation and no one did anything wrong. Then it was, well, maybe he did something wrong, but President Biden didn't know about it. And now it's, well, maybe President Biden knew about it and was involved, but it didn't influence his decisions. In fact, yesterday, there was a story in Politico which said that. The story in Politico yesterday, investigating the investigators, dim strategists to launch counterpunch to House GOP. Story in Politico yesterday, here's what I said in there. Quote, no evidence has publicly emerged that Joe Biden's decisions were affected by his son's business dealings. Wow, we've went from it wasn't his laptop and it was Russian disinformation to, oh, whatever was in there didn't affect the president's business dealings, even though he was involved, even though the laptop was real, even though it wasn't disinformation. That's how far we've come. So I think I think there are all kinds of questions that need to be answered, and we're determined to get there. Here's some of them that I have. Did the FBI brief Twitter as well? We know they briefed Facebook. We know that had an impact on the election. There's been surveys done where thousands and thousands of voters across this country said it might have impacted their decision in the election in 2020. Did the FBI brief any of the 51 former intelligence officials who signed that letter? Again, that letter that became the pretext for suppressing this story. Who did the briefings? Who briefed Facebook? Here's a name that I think is interesting. Timothy Tebow. By the way, the head of the special agent in charge at the Washington field office. Mr. Tebow is also the guy who suppressed information about the Hunter Biden story in October of 2020. I'd like to talk to Mr. Tebow. In fact, we have asked to talk to Mr. Tebow. Even though he said publicly, I welcome a chance to answer questions, he's refused to come in and talk to us. That's someone we need to talk to. We know these 51 former intel officials, they got security clearance. How often are they talking to the FBI? Are they talking to the FBI? Who's doing the talking? Who's doing the briefing? Were they briefed? There's so many questions that need answered so we can get to the bottom of this.
Well, it's on.
Yep. And the way you phrased it before the break is, I think, exactly right. You're going to the two candidates are now, one is the president, one's the former president, and you're going to have special counsel over here with a prosecutor without a budget, basically, and you're going to have the House over here, which is going to be an investigation without an end.
Well, I'm an American who'd like to get on with the business of being an American. So I have sort of mixed feelings about the special counsels. But I do feel in cases like Fauci, what he was up to, who he was talking to, where did the lab leak? Was it a lab leak? What was his involvement with that? What was his involvement with cover-up and covering it up? And what was his involvement and the government's involvement with Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook and Twitter and all that? I would like to get to the bottom of that because that feels broken, suspicious, and there's a high likelihood something is going to happen again, and we're all going to march down this retarded road with these people telling us things that are destroying our economy, our families, and our mental health, and our children based on this old set of criteria that I believe exists and needs to be broken up. So that much I would like to look into. The other thing I would like to look into is the FBI and just what they're up to, and are they doing the bidding of one side or the other? The 51 intelligence experts that signed the document, where did the document come from? Did it exist before? Was it crafted knowing that this was coming down the pipeline? And what is Twitter's involvement? What are social media platforms' involvement with the dissemination of news, or whether something is fake news or real news? And then finally, the FBI, there's more and more stories now of them being embedded with the Proud Boys and other militia groups before January 6th and during January 6th. So I'd like to know what the FBI's role was in January 6th. I'd like to know what their role was with the Hunter Biden laptop. In general, would like to think of the FBI as a clean entity that is calling balls and strikes. I don't want them deep sixing laptops that they know and have in their possession for 2 years before an election and suppressing information. And anything to do with COVID, anything to do with January 6th, anything to do with Hunter Biden, I'd like to know what the FBI is up to.
Well, I think you're gonna have 2 years to watch endless hearings on it. I'll tell you, there's going to be hearing after hearing after hearing. I mean, I can only imagine it's going to. And January 6th, you're going to see a marked difference in what's going to be investigated now that the Republicans have the House.
The narrative from January 6th is going to shift dramatically. I can promise all of you that there will be a huge shift in what comes out from January 6th versus the last, 19 or 20, 22, 23 months of January 6th coverage. So there is locally, the sheriff Villanueva did not get re-upped, which I just basically sit around and I rub my rosary beads and I go, dear God, please give us Rick Caruso and please give us Sheriff Villanueva so we can stop the madness in L.A. County. And then I wake up the next day and the election results come in and I get none of my wishes.
It was exactly, if you had a genie bottle and you rubbed it, you wouldn't get your 3 wishes. That's for sure. I can only hope that Luna, there's something that's very frustrating also about the populace talking about Measure A and Measure A passing, I think, by 70%. And for those who don't follow the local politics, Measure A gives basically delegates to the Board of Supervisors the ability to remove the sheriff who is elected. And that overwhelmingly passed. And if you're going to talk about threats to democracy, that to me is a direct threat to democracy. Yet the same people who vote for that will tell you that it's a big lie in election deniers, which, I can be with you there, but why can't you be consistent and say that if voters want to elect somebody, that they are the ones who get to remove him in the next election, which is what happened with Villanueva. He was removed. Why do we at the same time have to give the Board of Supervisors, and the cynic in me knows why, you want to give the Board of Supervisors that authority because you don't ever want to have a sheriff going forward who's ever going to look too closely at the board.
Yeah, it just feels all kind of dirty and inside and corrupt, and it's strange that Los Angeles has sort of become this. I don't know who Villanueva ran against. All I know is he pushed back against the board and the supervisors and the city council. He basically just said, Venice is a shit show and I'm going to go down there and clean it up. And they all screamed bloody murder. And then he went down there and cleaned it up. And then he angered all of them. Now, I don't live in Venice, but I do live in the city, and I sympathize for any small business owner who is along the boardwalk. And I'm thinking that Sheriff Villanueva just did what sheriffs are supposed to do, which is sort of clean things up and get back to law and order. I don't know why he ruffled so many feathers, but evidently he did, and now we have somebody new, and I'm guessing, then what happens is you say, oh, the new guy, that guy gets along with the city council and the board of supervisors. And then people like me go, I don't want that. And then the other people say, no, he's agreeable and that he can get along with them so he can compromise and he can get things done. And I'm like, I want people who buck the system, fly in the face of, and defy all the people that are making horrible decisions. And
by the way, the decisions, just like I say, all you got to do is drive through the downtown. I mean, what has happened is, I think, criminal. And so figure that out. And it doesn't take much to figure out what's happening down there.
Well, as it pertains to COVID in Los Angeles, I don't want somebody who goes along and gets along. I want somebody who challenges these people and tries to knock a little sense into them instead of just sort of tacitly going along with horrible policy decisions, which is where we've been at. Also, I don't know, Mark, you probably know better than me. Is it even logical or ethical or beyond somebody's sort of fiduciary duty to just go, I am going to randomly pick an insane woman who has a sociology degree to set policy for an entire economy, an entire city of millions of people, and it'll be up to her, and whichever way the wind is blowing her kooky bird nest, pouch of gray hair that sits atop her head. That will be the direction the entire county goes.
And by the way, you've got to defer to that legally on a rational basis, which is not a rational basis. It's basically the lowest scrutiny you can give, and absent something that's just absolutely insane, which my position this is, you have no way legally to challenge it. And that should not be the law, can't be the law. Unfortunately, it is the law at this point. That's where we're at. We can be still, update. I forget how many days it's been. I know it's been years, but we're still under an emergency order. How is that the definition of emergency?
Shouldn't emergency order have to be reviewed and updated and renewed periodically? I mean, just in perpetuity, the governor of one of the biggest states, one of the biggest economies in the world, can just announce there's an emergency order, and that shall be that. There's no independent council that can go, here's the criteria for an emergency order, and you're not meeting it.
Well, what's going to happen sooner rather than later? It was easy to do this when we were flush in the state of California, when we had a budget and the revenues that were off the charts. Well, guess what's happened? We're no longer in that position. We've had a pendulum swing in the last 2 months like you wouldn't believe, and that's going to cure a lot of this nonsense.
Yeah, I think it's $25 billion worth of deficit after maybe $90 billion surplus, and we shall be in trouble because we don't really count. California swings around all the time because we need like a tech boom or marijuana boom or some sort of boom to create this income. It's not a more linear way, which is everyone pays their taxes and we have a tight budget and we're lean and mean. It's as we spend, especially on all these unions and all the retirement and all the packages and everything. I mean, we have insane numbers. We have guys who work for the Department of Water and Power that are retiring with packages above, $500,000 a year with these retirement packages. As a matter of fact, there's a thing, and Gary can look it up because I'll screw it up a little, but there was an ordinance in place that basically said if you're making more than $257,000 a year on your retirement, you have to now start claiming whatever's above that. That's taxable income now. Like you're essentially making so much money, it can't be all tax-free. And we used to have a small number of those guys. We now have so many of those guys that they're going to have to revisit that because, of course, those people don't want to have to pay taxes on that number above 257. But I can't remember what that is called.
There's also, I forget what it was, but there's now a City of LA, I believe, special tax, 4%, I believe, on any property sales in excess of $5 or $10 million. And you say, well, so what? That should be. Why? Because it's $5 or $10 million. Well, what that's going to do, the law of unintended consequences, is it's going to eliminate, there's going to be repercussions to the real estate industry. So you're going to have a situation where who's going to invest any significant amount of money in commercial or residential real estate, and especially commercial? What are you going to buy and what are you going to invest in if you've got to then have a 4% tax off the top there as well?
Yeah, we never really think these things through, but the only way to raise this money with this deficit now is to figure out a way to tax people more, and it's going to be taxing the people that are already taxed at the max, and it's just a shit show. I hate Gavin Newsom. I'm glad he had to go stand in trial with Weinstein and his wife and anybody. We didn't get into the nuts and the bolts of that whole episode with the first partner, Gavin Newsom's wife, and the whole Weinstein situation. But it bordered on grotesque, would you say?
Oh, look, the idea that she apparently, or she's testified now, that she was raped by Weinstein, and 2 years later, she reached out to Weinstein because Gavin had apparently, according to him, been banging his best friend, campaign manager's wife, and it became a scandal. And she reached out to Harvey Weinstein on how to get advice on the sex scandal. And the defense lawyer, Mark Wertzman, is questioning that and plumbing that and trying to get the emails and evidence. And the judge has I believe as of yesterday, let him read the emails, but not the context for the emails. So the jury will not get a complete picture because the judge has ruled that it should not, the jury shouldn't be involved in collateral matters. But if it were me doing the defense, and I think Wertzman's made the same argument, don't you want the jury to completely understand that the governor and her husband is, even though they weren't married apparently at the time, that she was seeking advice from the rapist, the man she says raped her, about her partner? I mean, to me, that goes to the heart of the accusations. And I know that there's the amen chorus that's going to say, you don't know what you're talking about. People always do strange things because of the trauma. But no, people have an intuitive sense of what you would do and what you wouldn't do. And that, I think, negates, if you will, the force of any testimony that she gives.
Well, speaking of that last subject then of people reacting differently to trauma, the Paul Pelosi case and the story of the NBC News reporter that was suspended, and the story was scrubbed from their website, and the differing accounts from the people that witnessed the police body cam to the DOJ's report on who answered the door. It was funny. They interviewed, I think, the DA of San Francisco, and she said, now, I'm not going to speculate as to why someone wouldn't have walked outside or stood behind the cops. We all react differently to trauma in different ways. And I thought, no, this is kind of the same argument you're making with Weinstein. Usually when somebody violently rapes you, you don't seek their advice 2 years on matters that are in the same ballpark as the last time you engaged with this person. And normally when there's nut jobs with hammers in your house and you answer the door and the cops are on the other side of it at 2:30 in the morning, you normally step outside and get the cops between you and the guy with the ball-peen hammer. So there's two different speculations of what happened. The DOJ report is the police opened the door. That doesn't make any sense to me. The door's locked. The door's deadbolted. Somebody at least unlocked it or opened it up. And the police even said he did it with his left hand. I'd have to see what side the door was swung on. I could tell you as a Finnish carpenter, I'll tell you what side the hinge and the strike side is. But they said it, and the person that said it said they reviewed the video that was on the police camera, which I would tend to then believe because he watched a video.
And the most aggravating thing about this whole story is that it didn't need to be this way. The DA of San Francisco and lots of prosecutors will reveal, and I told you this before, they'll put out a body cam anytime they think it'll help their situation. So why isn't there a rule of some kind? And by the way, I've argued this for years. The body cam is the property of the taxpayers. I mean, it's not some private, my camera or my phone or a video recorder. It's the taxpayer funded their property. So why is it that the DA can get up there and complain about misinformation and disinformation? And I get that there's probably been a ton of it, but you're the one who can dispel it. Release the body cam, or at least blur out anything that is traumatizing, or do so. Be consistent is all I would argue.
What's your speculation? Why the difference between the DOJ and the DA and the reporter? Why'd they scrub the story from NBC? Why'd they suspend the guy?
I'll tease it for Tuesday, but we may have some information by Tuesday on this.
Really?
Yep. We may have some information.
You got some boots on the ground somewhere?
Yeah, there's my day job may inform some of this.
Wow. All right. Well, last but not least, there's Geico. Do you rent your home? Well, sure you do, and it can be hard work, too. You know it's easy? Bundling those policies with Geico. Geico makes it easy to bundle your homeowners or renters insurance along with your automotive policy. It's a good thing, too, because you already have so much to do around the house. So go to geico.com, get a quote, and see just how much you could be saving when you get your bundle working at Geico. That is geico.com. All right, I'm going to be in Tucson, Arizona at the Rialto Theater coming up December 15th, doing a live stand-up show there. And then we got 4 shows at Tempe, at the Tempe Improv. So come on out and say hi. That'll be the 16th and 17th. Just go to adamcarolla.com for all the live shows. What do you got, Mark?
I'm going to make a pitch again for Jake at Dirty Taco in Grand Central Terminal, Prova Pizza, right next door. Then if you're in Palm Springs, stop by Gigi's this coming week. It'll be Thanksgiving's week is a great week to be in Palm Springs.
So, till next time, Adam Carolla for Mark Hard Out Garagos saying mahalo.
Thanks for listening to Reasonable Doubt. Tune in next Saturday for an all-new episode.